this video, we're going to be walking you through creating your wedding itinerary. This is your schedule of events throughout the day and the timeline your vendors will operate on. It's really important to have this mapped out as soon as possible in order to maintain clarity in where and when everything will be happening. You also need to remember that the point of this is to actually enjoy your day and live in the moment rather than worrying about who is where at any given time. So this will serve as a guide for all of your guests so they know when they need to arrive, where they'll need to be, and what to expect. But I would say even more importantly, this will be the framework your vendors use to make your day perfect. Many people would have no idea, but the root of most problems that happen at a wedding actually stem from having a poorly built timeline. Whenever possible, you should be the one to design your schedule. In some cases, there might be some restrictions from one of your venues or from a vendor that might influence how things line up, but aside from those, you should be the one to create your own wedding timeline. I always tell couples to expect things to go wrong in their wedding because something always goes wrong. The number one issue with most faulty timelines is they map everything out down to the minute. This may sound like a good idea, but when you've got a dozen people in your bridal party who are in separate locations and aren't supposed to see each other, with many more important things happening right one after another, if a single thing ends up going wrong and holding you back longer, then that throws everything else off that timeline. Best case scenario, the food gets a little cold while the guests wait an extra 5 minutes. But in a worst case scenario, I've seen the reception start up to an hour late, which leaves no time for special dances. On top of that, some couples end up paying anywhere from a few $100 to a few $1,000 extra just in order to keep the vendors and waitstaff there past their contracted time, which, by the way, is going to cost you a premium rate. And that's assuming that they're even able to stay at all. There have been plenty of cases that I've personally seen where the premium rate won't even keep the vendors around because they have a babysitter at home or a 3-hour commute ahead of them. The best way to avoid these potential pitfalls is to create time buffers. A time buffer acts as a little cushion between anything important that's happening in your schedule. By scattering a few pockets of 15-minute time buffers throughout your day, you give yourself the opportunity to catch up if and when something goes wrong. And again, say with me, something always goes wrong. Maybe it's your caterer stuck in traffic. Maybe it's a little bit of rain holding up the ceremony. Anything can happen. And when it does, you're going to be thankful that you've got those extra pockets of time. And you might be asking yourself, but what if nothing goes wrong? Do I just stand there for 15 minutes? Yeah. You get a whole 15 minutes to breathe and actually enjoy the moment instead of being rushed from one place to the next. You get a chance to drink some water or a shot, depending on your preference. So let's keep that in mind as we build out our itinerary. For this example, I'm going to be making a schedule of events for our couple, Olivia and Christopher. The first place I'm going to start is by making sure that the portrait picture time, which normally happens after the ceremony, is taking place during golden hour. For those of you who don't know what that is, golden hour is essentially the hour before the sun starts to set, where the sky gets those deep, beautiful orange and golds. Couples who get pictures taken at this time will have results that are absolutely night and day by comparison. And these are the pictures and videos that are literally going to outlive you. So we want to make sure that we're prioritizing getting the most out of that time. The first thing we need to do is find out when golden hour is in reference to our wedding date. So depending on where and when you're getting married, the sun, location, and time will change drastically. And where every minute matters, we can't just be 20 minutes late. For Olivia and Christopher, they're getting married on October 21st in New Hampshire. And after a little light Googling, I can see that the sunset happens at about 6 p.m. So I know that I want to take pictures during that hour before sunset. So for now, we're going to mark that as portraits 5 to 6 o'clock. On a side note, you also want to keep in mind where the pictures will be taking place. For Olivia and Christopher, their picture spot is going to be up on a beautiful hill in a golf course. And because it's up so high, that means that the sun has more room before setting behind the tree line. But if your venue were to sit in a valley, that tree line would be a lot higher, which means the sun is going to disappear a lot faster. So I recommend you either scout this out a couple weeks prior or just ask the venue what you might be able to expect given your wedding day. So now that we've got a good starting point, we're going to start working backwards to fill in the earlier timeline. I also want to make sure we're keeping a 15-minute time buffer on both sides of the picture taking time because it's right next to two very important things. And so for that reason, I'm going to give myself an hour and a half. So we're going to change that to say time buffer 4:30 to 4:45, portraits 4:45 to 5:45, so it's an hour, and then another time buffer 5:45 to 6 p.m. This is great because now we can anticipate when both our ceremony and reception times will start. Since most non-church ceremonies will last about 20 to 30 minutes, we can say ceremony 4 to 4:30, so that'll fit perfectly. If your ceremony is even shorter, you've got more time to relax. We can also expect guests to arrive about 30 minutes before that, so we're going to say guest arrival 3:30 to 4 o'clock. But before all of these guests start to arrive, Olivia and Christopher would really like to make sure that they can squeeze in a first look. This is normally something that couples want to do privately before the ceremony without any guest onlookers. So we want to make sure we have a window for that, while also giving enough room for both the bride and the groom to get back to their room before everyone arrives. Right, the last thing we want to do is have your first look happen right before the ceremony, because that runs the risk of your photographer or videographer not having enough time to set up for the ceremony. So we're going to say first look 3 o'clock to 3:15. That also gives both the bride and the groom a nice gap of time to relax and prepare themselves before during the ceremony. So if we know the first look is at 3 o'clock, then that means that both the bride and groom will need to be fully ready by 2. That way there's plenty of time for photos and videos of everyone looking stunning in their final wardrobe. Just ask yourself this: are you going to frame the pictures of you all dressed up, or the ones with your hair and makeup half done? Well, if you don't leave yourself enough time for those pictures, you're not going to have a choice. So by doing so, that means that you'll also have plenty of time to do a big reveal to the bridal party, take selfies with everyone, and just admire how great you look before being carted off to the first look. So we're going to say bride dressed 1 to 1:30 and groom dressed 1:30 to 2. We'll want to separate these two as well, because the photographer and videographer will need to capture both, and since they can't be in 2 places at once, this splits it up a bit. So we know when everyone will need to be dressed, but now we need to find out when to start getting dressed. Unfortunately, the ladies are going to need way more time than the fellas will, but that's why they look so much better. They've got hair, makeup, wardrobe, all kinds of stuff to factor in. The guys just strip down and get dressed in 10 minutes like it's a high school locker room, with the added responsibility of pre-gaming, of course. So we're going to focus on the girls first. Depending on how many people you have in your bridal party, this will play a big role in how much time is needed for getting ready. So for this reason, we recommend having a team of no less than 2 hair and makeup artists. That way, one person is not juggling all that work and taking twice as long. You should expect hair and makeup to take anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes per bridesmaid. And don't forget about mom either, because she's probably on that list as well. As for the bride, you can expect her hair and makeup to be anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes total. So depending on how many people you have in your party and how many hair and makeup artists you have, you're going to want to give yourself plenty of time. For Olivia and Christopher, we're going to say hair and makeup 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., since Olivia has a bridal party of 7 plus herself. So that covers the first half of the schedule. Now let's fast forward to after the ceremony. While the bride and groom will be off taking their pictures after the ceremony, the guests will head to what's commonly known as cocktail hour. This is where everyone can get drinks, little snacks, and just catch up with one another prior to the reception. For Olivia and Chris, we're going to say cocktail hour 4:30 to 6 p.m. Once cocktail hour wraps up, the guests will then head into the reception and take their seats. So we're going to say reception start 6 p.m. During the 15-minute time buffer we gave ourselves prior to the reception start is when the bride and groom will take some time to decompress and be by themselves. Keep in mind, this is the first time in like 2 hours since you've gotten married that you'll actually be able to be by yourselves. So give yourself some time and enjoy that moment. You will also need to make sure that someone is there to bustle up your wedding dress before going in for the first dance. This can take a few minutes as well, so make a game plan with your maid of honor. Then the reception starts. And if you're like most people, you don't like being the center of attention in a room full of literally everyone you know. Unfortunately, there's really no avoiding the spotlight in this situation because you're going to get a grand entrance. So while everyone's already looking at you during that entrance, you might as well just use that moment to transition right into your first dance. So we're going to say first dance 6 to 6:10. That'll give you plenty of time to enjoy your special dance and get comfortable at your seat. This will also give the photographer and videographer and DJ plenty of time to set up for speeches and toasts, which we're going to say 6:10 to 6:30. Now, we'll cover the topic of speeches in a later video, but do everyone a favor and have a conversation with anyone who's going to be giving a speech and make sure it's a reasonable length. The ideal speech should be between 5 and 7 minutes long. If everyone's got a 20-minute speech, that's easily an hour or more of guests sitting there while their food is getting cold. I've seen this ruin more dinners than anything. And when you're paying as much as you are for that food, you should at least be able to enjoy it. So we're going to say dinner 6:30 to 7:30. A good rule of thumb is to give everyone an hour to eat, starting with yourself and your vendors. That's right, your vendors. Why in that order? Because nothing important happens when the bride and groom are eating. So that's the perfect time to have your vendors eat, so nothing important is missed. If you make the mistake that a lot of people make, you run the risk of something important happening and not having the vendors there to help. This could be the special dances with your parents, cutting the cake, or a special moment that won't come again. Feed your vendors first, and they'll be ready to go again when dinner wraps up. After dinner concludes, we're going to schedule cutting the cake 7:30 to 7:40 p.m. Whether or not you want to make a spectacle of this moment or keep it private and off to the side, you're still going to want to make sure that that cake is being cut so that the guests can get their dessert right after dinner and not have to wait. This is especially important for those who have rather rowdy families and are a bit too familiar with alcohol and might need a little extra something in their stomach to soak up all those bad ideas they're contemplating. Once the cake is cut, and again, all the attention is already on you, we're going to transition right into parent dances, 7:40 to 8 p.m. Sometimes you can swap these two. In this case, we want to do the cake first. Most families will have 2 of these dances, but it's not unheard of to see 3 or 4 happen. So giving yourself 20 minutes should be plenty in any scenario. And I got some news for you. All the important stuff is done. For the remaining hours of that reception, we'll say dancing, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. And a lot of people like to do some kind of a finale at the end, like a sparkler send-off, so we're going to list that as Olivia and Christopher's as well. Sparkler finale, 11 p.m. Pro tip though, if you want to have this in your pictures and video, it might be a good idea to do the sparkler send-off at around 9 p.m. instead. The reason being that your vendors will likely not be staying until the very end, and neither will all of your guests. So if you want to have a nice big lineup for that finale, a lot of people will schedule that sooner and then just go back to dancing, but it's your call. So let's take a look at that final timeline. Hair and makeup, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Bride dressed, 1 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. Groom dressed, 1:30 p.m. to 2 p.m. Pictures, 2 p.m. to 2:45 p.m. Time buffer, 2:45 p.m. to 3 p.m. First look, 3 p.m. to 3:15 p.m. Time buffer, 3:15 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Guest arrival, 3:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. Ceremony, 4 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Time buffer, 4:30 p.m. to 4:45 p.m. Portraits, 4:45 p.m. to 5:45 p.m. Time buffer, 5:45 p.m. to 6 p.m. Reception start, 6 p.m. First dance, 6 p.m. to 6:10. Speeches and toasts, 6:10 to 6:30 p.m. Dinner, 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Parent dances, 7:40 p.m. to 8 p.m. Dancing, 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. And finally, the sparkler finale, 11 p.m. or 9 p.m. depending on your preference. This schedule looks great because it's got everything Olivia and Christopher want to do, with plenty of time to do it. Even if something goes wrong, which, say with me, something always goes wrong, they will have plenty of opportunities to catch up and not have it impact their big day. More importantly, this keeps the stress levels down and things stay on budget. For a schedule like this, I would recommend having the following vendors booked for these time slots. Videographer, 8 to 10 hours. Photographer, 8 to 10 hours. DJ/entertainment, 6 to 7 hours. Hair and makeup, 5 to 6 hours. For your photographer and videographers, I would schedule to have them come between 12 and 9 p.m. That way they get the tail end of everyone getting ready and about an hour of dancing. If you move them too much in either direction, you're going to get a lot of redundant material that you don't need. If you reduce the hours of coverage too much, you'll start to lose some really important things. But if you're really in a budget pinch, you're better off staggering your artist's schedule so that you have a little bit of everything rather than missing out on something altogether. That should just about cover everything when it comes to making your schedule. Now, I know this was a long video, but there was a lot of important things we covered that most couples only ever get to learn in hindsight. So hopefully this saves you a lot of headache, stress, and money. For a lot of you, you may just end up using this exact schedule for your own wedding. Others may want to tweak it here and there a bit for their own day, but both are totally fine, as long as you keep in mind the same values. As always, if you have any questions or concerns about the material we covered in this lesson, feel free to post those questions right in our private Facebook group or email us directly at support@wedeverything.com. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching, you guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget that you can subscribe to our channel right here, and we will see you in the next video.